Hi, welcome back to Jen's Addiction. I'm so glad you came back to see me today. And on today's episode, I'm kind of doing a little bit of a self-indulgent episode. I wanted to not really review, but more celebrate and highlight a record that is a favorite of mine, one that I cannot imagine not having in my collection, and that would be Phantasmagoria from The Damned. The Damned is one of my favorite bands. I think I've talked to them maybe, or about them. Wish I'd talked to them. I've talked about them a little bit on this channel before. And I was able to highlight this record a while back when I had discussed with fellow YouTuber and friend Tobias Granville on his channel, our 10 picks for favorite releases of 1985. So many to choose from. It was a hard list to narrow down. What a great year for music. But this album was on my list, and I don't think it would ever not have a spot in my top 10. I think it is absolutely a phantasma. I think I've taken the name too far. A fantastic album. Phantasmagoria is a fantastic album, and I cannot imagine it not being in my collection at all. So originally coming out in July of 1985, 40 years old, and I still remember buying this copy like it was yesterday, going to one of the local college record stores. I did not get a physical vinyl copy. I actually picked up the CD. In hindsight, I wish I had purchased the vinyl like everybody else. This is a beautiful copy that my husband bought me as a gift. It came with the shrink wrap and the hype sticker, and it's as lovely and wonderful as the day it came out. So I'm super grateful to have that. He gets me. But this was my CD that I played ad nauseum. And boy, from the minute I got it, I was just never disappointed. So I thought maybe today I would just do kind of a brief kind of overview of the record. I've got a couple of the 45s that correspond that I can kind of showcase and show, kind of a little show and tell. And I had been thinking when I've been re-listening to this record, I've sort of come full circle about what I feel that it means and maybe where they were going with it. And I've looked at it with different eyes, I guess. But I'll kind of get to that at the end. I will, and I have kind of a little comparison that I think some of you may be able to chime in on what you think as well, which kind of brings me to the point of always leaving comments below. I love hearing the comments, anything that you can contribute or any mysteries that maybe you have around this record that I may not mention or that you'd like to share. I would love, love, love to hear your comments. Everybody always has such great insights and extra things to contribute, and I appreciate that a lot. And I love to keep the conversation going. So please, please add your comments below. So again, July 1985, sixth record to come out by The Damned. It is the first one that does not have Captain Sensible on it. So Roman Jug is a keyboard player who'd been with the band on Strawberries, leaves the keyboard position to then become the principal guitarist when Captain Sensible leaves to continue his solo career. And then you have Rat Scabies, Dave Vanian, and then they also get Brian Merrick on bass. So those four form the core of what is The Damned for this album, and also for, going wrong direction, this album, Anything, which I also really love. And a little bit, I think these two albums are sort of controversial within the fandom of The Damned. Some folks really don't care for some of those or don't even think that anything is as good. I really like them both an awful lot. I do think this one also probably was polarizing for some fans because it is a very different record. If you listen to early Damned records, I mean, they're known as some of the founding, members and bands around punk music, and they're so strongly associated with the punk rock movement, especially out of England. It's hard to think of them in any other way. And when you get to this record, it is a departure sort of from that, and it does take on a whole new song and genre. And this album seems to be hailed and added into that first goth sound, first goth image. Dave Vanian is really able, I think, to take that persona that he has of like almost a vampiric singer and underlord, almost like pre-vampire Lestat, if you will, to the next level and express it lyrically and musically. Some songs like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde sort of give us a glimpse of what is to come from Dave. But this is really, I think, as many people believe, the record he was destined to make. And I think that is true. I think this is a total high point for him. I mean, it was the number one selling record for The Damned up until Evil Spirits, which came out just a few years ago. So that's really saying something, to think that, over 30 years, this album has stood the test of time. People love it, continue to love it. And, younger generations kind of tuning in and turning on to that. So it's just a pivotal record. Bob Sargent and John Kelly helped produce it. John Kelly also is known for some of his production work with many artists, from Kate Bush to Prefab Sprout. And I always sort of feel that it's fun to kind of know the production crew and the engineers, because sometimes other albums you can sort of hear similarities through. It's also worth noting that not only did those four guys make Phantasmagoria and Anything, but also in between those two, they did the album Naz and the Nomads, which I highlighted in my video about alter egos. So they had different names and a different name for the band, and billed themselves as sort of this psychedelic 60s band. And that Naz and the Nomads was a film score release. So it's really, really fun and super cool album. And definitely all these are very different than what we saw from The Damned early in their very first album, Up to Strawberry. So it was pretty awesome. This particular album came out, I had seen that it came in some special edition variations, a white record, also a picture disc. Some versions came with a 12-inch single. I had read of Eloise. I have not seen that particular combination. Maybe some of you have been lucky enough to have one. I wish I had that grouping together. I'm always on the hunt, as I said, for those types of things. And I've never actually physically seen a picture disc in person. I imagine this is the image, probably predominant image on it, but I've not been able to ever see the picture disc. The iconic image on the front, which I think is absolutely amazing, is shot by Bob Clark, and it is of model Susie Cave, who went on in 1999 to marry Nick Cave from Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. So quite the goth couple. And I think she even, besides modeling, had opened her own clothing stores. I think it was called The Vampire's Wife. So she went on to do many gothy things. So she was a perfect choice, I think, visually and aesthetically for this particular record. It's just so fantastic. Having said that, I think the cover is so powerful and so amazing. You might see some similarities between it and a little album called Mad Bad and Dangerous to Know. Why can I not remember that? From Dead or Alive. I mean, could you not be more similar between two records? I think that is just kind of an incredible and odd similarity. This one came out in 1986. So pretty sure they were probably influenced in some way by Phantasmagoria. I mean, do you think? I kind of think so. But still a great record, love Dead or Alive. But man, could that not be more similar? I would be hunting for this record, see that record from across the room, and probably needing my glasses on because I'm too vain to wear them. The closer I would get, I get disappointed because I realized it wasn't this one. It was a Dead or Alive one I already had. So somebody else obviously loved this record because that looks awful, awful similar. The record has 9 tracks on it. You get 2 bonus tracks with the CD. Grimly Fiendish and Shadow of Love are remix versions on here. They do a reissue in 1986 where they add Eloise to the record, but it is not an original, obviously, to this particular album. But it is the 4th single that they make after doing this record. So the first is Grimly Fiendish. The second was Shadow of Love. The third Is It a Dream? And the fourth one then would be Eloise. I do have a copy of Grimly Fiendish. I think this is also a photo on one of the 12-inch singles. Both of these records have just the regular sort of spindle little hole there on the inside, which I like that better on 45s. I thought it was just kind of quicker and easier. This Shadow of Love, which is probably my favorite song on the record, I think this is just the coolest 7-inch. It folds out then to kind of be more of just her face as a fold out. But what I thought was super cool, and I've never seen anything like it since, is that it gives concert dates on the inside of that particular record. So I thought that was really neat. I don't know. Maybe somebody has some information out there. I assumed it was sort of like a promotional item, although it's not stamped promotional, put out by MCA. But I thought, maybe, I don't know. I can't see anything on here that would state otherwise. But to have all those concert dates, I've just never really seen anything like that before. So I thought that was super cool. Maybe they sold it at concerts. I don't know. I really don't know anything about it. So if you know anything else about this particular style for this 45, I would love to know. Unfortunately, I do not have a copy then of the other two singles. I really wish that I did, but I do not. And I think the Shadow of Love I'd heard came out as a 12-inch single, a 10-inch single, and that one of the 7-inch singles has on the B side is Rat Scabies doing a solo song called Let There Be Rats. Would love to have one of those. If you have that, I'd love to know how you like it. If you like it, it's pretty awesome. I'm just grabbing a few of my notes here for a little bit earlier on. I really think that the opening song for Street of Dreams is a real blend of punk to goth. It kind of has that sound that you would sort of expect from a Damned record that is more kind of that punk side, but mashing into what will become that more goth aesthetic. And maybe that was purposeful, kind of, out with the old and with the new kind of a feeling. So I really kind of felt that song kind of had, it is a Hallmark song off of the album. Many people love that. It's a favorite of very, very many. Shadow of Love is definitely my favorite. I think it has more of a rockabilly kind of feel to it. I've just always loved sort of everything about that song. That vibe is just his voice, and this whole album seems lower or different in some way. I don't know if that's engineering or a trick of recording it, or he sung differently at the time. Maybe it just changed, but it just atmospheric quality and depth and tone to his voice seems so much deeper and darker to me than it had ever been before. I think the whole first side sort of sets a stage and a feeling that's not quite as happy-go-lucky, maybe as a few songs on the second side. And I'm starting to believe that maybe was a very purposeful ideology. I like to look things up. I'm always wanting to learn more or think more. I've not read a lot of personal accounts about what band members were going through at the time that record was recorded, personal experiences they ever wanted to talk about, or issues that were important to them. But what I taken away has really just been from diving a little bit deeper into the album itself. Like, why did they call it Phantasmagoria? So why did they title some of the other songs? And it started getting me to think that perhaps there is a desire to tell a story start to finish, as with most albums, I believe, but almost like a goth opera, if you will, not quite as heavy as Meatloaf would be, or maybe not even as much as Freddie Mercury would sound on some Queen songs. But I really think Dave Vanian is a very deep, theatrical kind of performer and singer. And I could really see him taking the things that are important to him and stringing them together to make a complete vision and imagery. And I think about that a little bit more. Their last, and was it Night of a Thousand Vampires? live album, he does it in 2 takes. I think I mentioned he changes halfway through into more of a vampiric form. It has a lot of depth and theater behind it, which makes me believe it is completely possible that he would be part of spearheading a project that would have those qualities. Because again, very different than what the Dam had done before. So I'll just give a few highlights that kind of illustrate some of my points, a few lyrics, and then maybe I would love to hear maybe what some of you think about some of these theories. So Phantasmagoria, by definition, is a sequence of real or imaginary images like those seen in a dream. So, we see a lot of, street of dreams, is it a dream? I mean, titles to the songs that harken back to that whole ideology about dreams and shadows and shadowy worlds. So I think that really sets the tone. If you think about just the title of the album alone, it gets you thinking about what they're setting up. They're getting ready to take you on this trip down into a very imaginary, or is it, place? So internal, external, right? The very first with Street of Dreams, some of the lyrics on that particular song, the thing that stood out to me over and over again was seekers of unlikeliness. So they mentioned being seekers of unlikeliness, and he's singing about like the searching, right? Going out on the street of dreams. And it always seems to be at night, which kind of makes me think almost like a Nightmare on Elm Street, like all these different things unfold and happen at night in your dreams, right? Shadow of Love then would kind of be the next spot that we would go to on this journey. And they mention about innocence and different things that happen within that song. So they talk about being caught in the shadow of love, and they mention innocence burning. And some of the other images within those lyrics really get me thinking about, first I used to think it was about love lost, right? And that type of a thing. Now I'm wondering, is it a seance? Is it kind of summoning something deeper and darker, either in your mind or out at night, when things will come to the surface that aren't easily seen during the day? So again, I think it's sort of setting the stage about opening up the mind and thought and seeking and looking for something more. There'll Come a Day is the next song on the record. This one, they mention a torch of love burning a flame, carrying you through insanity and the despair of night. So again, I think they all start to link together. Everything's happening at night. You're always having to find some kind of a light to get you through from one side to the other, finding hope in the darkness. How do you make it to the morning? How do you get to the next side? So that just sort of, again, flows almost in the storytelling of someone seeking something and using different ways to find it. I'm still not sure if it's in their mind or spirits and physical, like someone being trapped within their own mind, almost like being in an insane asylum or something of that sort. I've kind of toyed with that thought too. But Sanctum Sanctorum is the next song that will come after that, the last one on the first side. And a Sanctum Sanctorum is a private place, a secret private place. So when you think about that, and then you think about, again, the songs that came before and what they're searching for and looking for, and maybe that is the secret private place kind of within your mind, or where you want to go, what you want things to be. This song has like a Phantom of the Opera style piano, all the way through. It has that very gothy night sounds to it, even before the lyrics actually kick in. It's the longest song on the album, clocking in at 6 minutes and like 50 some seconds, I think. But it'll say like, awake in the night to whisper your name, only a silence replies. Its answer, a sleeping refrain, the moment dies, but memory stays. So like tormented from love, tormented from whatever it is he's calling for. He's looking for it. I feel like he's being tormented, almost like Edgar Allan Poe in The Raven. He's tormented at the loss of Lenore, which, I mean, it's not Eloise, but hey, there's another rabbit hole we could go down to. But I really feel like Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven is a perfect thing to kind of look at and maybe compare to Sanctum Sanctorum, and how they are going through and the cadence. The Raven has a musical quality to it. It's known for obviously delving into a supernatural or spiritual subject matter, and the language is so well used. And I think when you look at the long list of lyrics for the song and the poetic nature in which it's laid out and that they are used, it's definitely, I think, worth exploring that parallel. Of course, in The Raven, they're, quote, "The Raven nevermore," and we repeat that over and over. In this particular song, they have a line called "It's True of You," which, the way in which it's kind of used or harkens back after you say all these other things, then you say "It's true of you." I Again, I think it reminds me a lot of The Raven in that respect. So I feel like there's this searching and looking and loss and these feelings. And then you flip the record over and you get "Is It a Dream," which is more of a kind of a happy-go-lucky song. I mean, it was released as a single. You can sing along to it. But really, it's sort of questioning their life. Is it a dream? Am I living a dream? Where am I at? Is insanity taking you on this journey? Are you insane because you've lost someone you loved? You're what is it like? But I do think there's that thread that kind of goes through, and now you're kind of in this happy place, and you're thinking, wow, this is great. And is it a dream? And maybe it's all good. I mean, it's pretty upbeat for a goth song, but it has very deep, darker undertones to it when you really kind of peel it back. And that kind of here and now, which when you get into Grimly Fiendish, I think is kind of almost looking at an adult looking back from that happy place then onto their childhood and the things that happened to them that weren't so great. I think it's kind of, they mentioned, it sounds like a child caught in a grown-up world. They always say bad, bad, bad boy. So someone's reprimanding them. They make reference to, you like to play, but you don't play. You never play, you never pray. Another lyric, they talk about long black, like a gown. Like, it makes me wonder if it's a parental figure, a religious figure when they mention praying. And I think of like a priest robe or something, like a child being constantly told they're no good or they're not doing enough. Or so there's that whole dynamic and play at hand. So I think it's kind of growing this child perspective, and that adults are looking at you and they aren't uplifting you. The one part that really stood out to me in this song was, "You didn't make me good, you just painted me green." So like, you're just saying bad, bad, bad boy. And then you have this, what do you have is this child left who's kind of damaged. And then you go into Edward the Bear, which then it made sense that those two would follow each other and be on the same 45. Edward the Bear is the original name, I believe, for Winnie the Pooh. So it's like a childhood toy. And that one's sung by Roman. So it's very, very different. It's sort of playful, again, dark. And I did like the part in that song where they say toys have all been packed away. So they were reflecting back again on their childhood, the things that they love, the bears, the toys they played with. They have to pack it all away and kind of move on. And how do you take everything that you've packed away, including the loss of love, including being told you were bad? I mean, how do you pack that away and move on? But you get into Eighth Day. That's how you move on. It's sort of a reference, I think, probably to the book of Genesis to some degree, and how things are created and redone, renewed creation, if you would. But maybe it's not being created into something good. Maybe he's being recreated into something a little darker and deeper and more evil. There's devil and darkness and spirits and things kind of lingering all through this record. And again, I think they're weaving this image of how do you get from point A to point B. And so at the very end of that song, they list the lyrics to that are kind of crazy. but they're just listing all sorts of things about that happen on the eighth day, right? Dancing devils knocking on my door. It has to gray that came to more. They talk about mountains rise like mounds of sand. The boiling sea has swallowed up the land. Like, this is all things, then they'll go on the eighth day. So they talk about the eighth day and what happens and all this stuff. And I think it's kind of the internal uprising of the person who is relaying this message to us. So then you end with Trojans, which is just, you're fighting almost then at that point a silent battle. It's just music. There's no lyrics. It's just a really about as non-goth, as non-punk a song as you can come up with. But to me, it's just sort of like that everything's come to a boil. This person has recreated themselves through love and loss as a child, as an adult. And then what happens? And we don't really know. They kind of goes off into the sunset, and you just sort of hear what sounds almost like a Miami Vice 80s style song, but it could be anything. And I just think they've woven a real kind of amazing story. And I would think of it almost like you could make it into like a goth opera, like a play. So anyway, that's kind of my armchair quarterback theory about this album. A little bit of a deeper dive, if you will, into the record and kind of my thoughts behind it. I guess I had so much going on in my head. I just sort of wanted to share, and I would love to know what some of you think about this record. All the songs can stand on their own. They could be stories on their own, but when you put them together and you can't jump around on a CD and you listen to it again, start to finish, like so many of us talk about in the vinyl world of records make you slow down, records make you listen. So true. Even though I listened to this album out of the gate when I got it, I then jumped to song number 2. Then I jumped to back. I mixed it around. I put it on shuffle. So I've listened to it now front to back numerous times, and just very slowly was peeling back layer after layer until it kind of dawned on me like, wow, I think they're telling an interwoven story, not necessarily songs that stand on their own. So that's my theory today. I'm sticking with it. Despite all of that, it is a brilliant record, in my opinion. I love it. I love The Damned. I think it's beautifully produced. The songs are beautifully made. The imagery is gorgeous. And again, I cannot imagine my collection without having it. So hopefully you will all contribute some of your memories and thoughts about this particular record. If you've never listened to it, I think you should listen to it at least once. I do think it's a pivotal record between punk and goth that everyone maybe should listen to once, especially if you like those genres of music. But other than that, I think it's just kind of brilliant. So hopefully you'll be spinning some great tunes. You'll all come back to see me, and you'll weave your own little goth opera of your own, either with The Damned or something else that you enjoy. Thank you so much. We'll see you later. Hit like and subscribe, and come back here next time.